See that luxury SUV stuck up there balanced on a stump like some kind of $90,000 lawn ornament? Yeah, that's Karen's. And that moment with the sheriff staring at it in disbelief and Karen screaming that I'd violated her civil rights was the exact second everything she'd built, every lie, every power trip, every HOA rule she twisted for her own ego, finally collapsed. But to understand how we ended up with her Escalade perched like a confused rhinoceros on my property, you'd have to go back with me. Back to when all I wanted was peace, quiet, and a little bit of land that didn't belong to anyone but me. I moved out to Willow Ridge Meadows for the same reason a lot of people give up the suburbs. I was tired. 25 years in logistics will squeeze the life out of you. Emails, deadlines, urgent crises that melt the moment someone else signs their name. I traded all that for a small place on the edge of town where the only rules were the ones I set. My driveway curved past a windbreak tree I loved from the first day I saw it, and most importantly, I lived outside the HOA lines. I thought that meant freedom. What I didn't know was that the HOA's president, Karen Salters, Queen of Meadowbrook Estates, had a bad habit of treating boundaries as suggestions. The first time I saw her, she was parked halfway across my driveway, phone held out in front of her like she was filming a documentary only she could see. Big sunglasses, bigger attitude. I approached politely, thinking maybe she was lost. She barely glanced up. "No, I'm fine," she said. "I just need to live stream some HOA business. This is the only spot with decent service." I blinked. "Ma'am, this is private property. I need you to move so I can—" She waved a dismissive hand. "You must be new. The HOA has historical access. It's always been that way." Historical access. My deed didn't have a single squiggle that even resembled an easement, but she looked at me like I was the one trespassing. I held my ground, told her she still had to move. She rolled her eyes, shoved her car into gear, and peeled off like I'd personally insulted her ancestors. And maybe that should have been the end of it. Maybe I should have chalked it up to one entitled neighbor and gone on with my day. But people like Karen don't stop after one win, they circle back. They test you. They push until they find the point where you break. 2 days later, she was back. Same spot, same angle. Except this time she wasn't working. She was reclining her seat under the shade of my tree AC, blasting, filing her nails like she'd brought her personal spa onto my land. I approached again, trying to keep my voice even. "Ma'am, we talked about this." She didn't even lower her sunglasses. "This road is part of our community's emergency overflow route. Perfectly legal." "No, it's not," I said. "There's no easement." She clicked her metal cup against her nail file. "I don't have time to argue semantics with you." Semantics was her favorite word when facts didn't align with her fantasies. For weeks it continued. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. She'd show up, park in the same spot, kick her seat back and treat my land like her private lounge. Every time I reminded her she was trespassing, she acted like I was rude for interrupting her comfort. And every time she left, I felt something inside me tighten, frustration, helplessness, the slow ache of watching someone disrespect what you've worked for. But none of that compared to the day everything snapped. It was late June. The air was heavy and sweet, the kind of morning where the world feels calm. I was hauling feed when a blast, long, angry, shaking the siding of my barn loud, hit the air. I dropped the bag and ran. There was Karen leaned back in her Escalade like she was summoning a waiter, one hand holding down her horn, the other waving at me. "You need to move your tractor," she yelled. "My tractor is parked," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Keys are in my pocket," she huffed. Well, I honked. Before I could answer, I heard a metallic clang behind me, followed by a pained groan. One of my animals had slammed into a trough, scared half to death by her horn. She was limping badly. Pregnant. My stomach turned. I looked back at Karen, still lounging in her seat. "She's hurt," I said. Karen lifted her sunglasses, glanced over, shrugged. "She looks fine. You're being dramatic." And something in me cracked. Not loud, not dramatic, just a clean, cold break. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just said, "You need to move your vehicle." And Karen, smirking, said the one line that would haunt me for weeks. "Don't make things difficult." From that moment, I knew everything had to change. But before I could do anything, nature forced my hand. A storm rolled in that night, the kind old farmers still talk about years later. Wind like freight trains, rain slicing sideways, lightning turning the sky white. My injured animal went into early labor. Breach, life or death situation. I loaded her into the trailer, praying I'd get her to the vet in time. And there, blocking my only route to the main road hazards, blinking smugly like taillight jewelry, sat Karen's Escalade. I slapped the side window. "Move! I have an emergency." Karen cracked her window 2 inches. "My tires aren't going into that mud. I'll wait it out." "Please, she's in labor." "It's just an animal," she said, and rolled the window back up. I will never forget that moment, drenched in rain, soaked to the bone. Thunder shaking the air, my animal crying out in pain behind me, while Karen sat warm, dry, and utterly indifferent 10 feet away. The shame, the rage, the helplessness, it all sank into me like cold water. I delivered the calf myself, in the storm, by hand, in mud up to my knees. When the calf finally coughed and breathed, I held it against me and cried from relief and exhaustion. And through it all, Karen didn't move, not once. The next morning, something in me had hardened. Not anger, clarity. Karen wasn't going to stop. She wasn't going to change. She wasn't going to apologize. She had to be stopped. So I pulled the deed folder, went through every page. No easement, no access, no rights. Just my land, my driveway, my property. I met with my lawyer, Jim, who told me exactly what I needed: documentation, evidence, consistency. Build a mountain, not a hill. And then Karen made the fatal mistake. She returned this time, bringing her entire HOA entourage. A Lexus, a BMW, a Mercedes, like her personal cavalry. They got out in matching polo shirts and lanyards, holding clipboards and phones like they were about to audit my soul. Karen pointed at my driveway. "We're resolving a community access issue." "It's not your community," I said. "It's my land." Her board members tried to back her up, parroting nonsense about developer plans and emergency overflow routes. But none of them had actual documents. None of them had evidence. And when their arguments fell apart, Karen locked her SUV, tossed her keys into her purse, and announced, "I'm leaving my vehicle here as evidence. Touch it and I'll sue you into bankruptcy." They all climbed into their cars and drove away, not even glancing back, leaving her SUV exactly where it hurt me most, blocking my emergency access. Again, that was the moment I stopped being tired, stopped doubting myself, stopped wondering if I should just let her win. I walked back to the barn with a level of calm I hadn't felt in months. If Karen wanted a battle, she'd get one, but on my terms, by the book, with every step recorded. I set up my body cam, filmed every angle of her SUV. No dents, no scratches, nothing she could use later. I laid out padded straps, soft axle loops, a stabilizing line, the kind you'd use to rescue a vehicle without harming it. I checked the structure of the stump near the windbreak tree. Wide, flat, solid, perfect support. Then, with the slow precision of someone building a legal fortress, I lifted the rear end of that SUV just high enough to rest it on the stump. No force, no damage, no scraping. The front wheels dipped into a small ditch, anchoring it in place. When I stepped back, I almost laughed. The Escalade wasn't damaged. It was just stuck, perfectly and beautifully stuck. The next morning, Karen arrived in someone else's car, shrieking before the door even opened. "What did you do?" "Arrest him. He vandalized my vehicle." Deputy Trujillo inspected everything, touched the bumper, checked the straps, looked at the stump, then nodded. "Ma'am, this vehicle has no damage," he said, "and you abandoned it on private property. The citations are yours." Her face-crumpled voice cracking as the reality settled in. But if that was the collapse, what followed was the avalanche. Karen posted a dramatic TikTok of herself sobbing about how I'd hung her SUV from a tree like a monster. She claimed I threatened her, trapped her, endangered her life. And for a moment, just a moment, I wondered if she'd win. Her video got thousands of views. People were calling me a psychopath, saying I should be arrested. And for the first time in weeks, that old doubt crept back in. Maybe this was too much. Maybe I really should have just ignored her. Maybe she'd spin the truth so much no one would believe me. But then I remembered last night holding a newborn calf while lightning split the sky, and every bit of doubt dried up like a puddle in August heat. I uploaded the full footage. All of it. Karen blocking the road. Me begging her to move, the storm, the labor, her shrugging saying it's just an animal, and finally the clean, safe lift onto the stump. The internet flipped instantly. Never mind. She lied. Bro is a mechanical genius. She blocked a man during an emergency, throw her HOA away. And then something unexpected. A message from the HOA's assistant treasurer. Anonymous, terrified, tired. They sent me files, financial records showing Karen had used HOA funds for spa weekends and personal vehicle maintenance. Email threads where she planned to pressure Marcus using driveway interference. The final nail was ready. Court day arrived. Karen barreled in with a brand new lawyer waving accusations like confetti. The judge didn't buy a word of it. No easement, no proof, no damage to her SUV. But plenty of evidence she'd abused her position, misused funds, and created a safety hazard. By the time my binder was halfway reviewed, Karen was pale and trembling. When the judge barred her from HOA leadership and forwarded her finances to the district attorney, she let out a broken sob that echoed in the wooden courtroom. She left without looking at me, without her SUV, without her title, without her power. I drove home slow. The stump was empty, the Escalade finally removed at her expense. The windbreak tree rustled softly. My land was quiet again, honest again. I stepped onto my porch, looked out over the driveway she'd once claimed as hers, and breathed. Some people learn from warnings. Some learn from consequences. But people like Karen, they only learn when the world finally refuses to move for them.